Hello, class, and welcome to week 9. Also, welcome to your old classroom in a virtual sense. Yes, it's true. I'm actually in there right now. I probably am not supposed to be, but I feel comfortable here, and I hopefully you folks do as well. Okay. So this week, we are going to be jumping into the next part of the class, which is the detective cue music here. And to really get started, we need to ask a question of what is a detective in a general sense. Um, you could say it's a person who finds things because it could be as general as that. We'll be looking at a variety of different definitions of a detective in the same way we did with gangsters as well. We looked at different types, people who are different positions, but still involved in crime and being part of a gang. So with detectives, we're going to kind of take a similar look. So everything from a traditional version, a guy in a trench coat and fedora who finds missing dames and priceless objects and enjoys sending the police on false leads and pitting the bad guys against each other. Does anyone know which movie I'm actually doing the synopsis for? It's The Maltese Falcon, just FYI. A plainclothes policeman who struggles against procedural obstacles to solve cases, which is something we'll be taking a look at imminently. An undercover cop who's been pretending to be someone else for so long he can't remember what his assignment is. This is a common narrative for undercover detectives. A dude with no skills of detection whatsoever who somehow finds himself mixed up in a mystery he can't quite comprehend. Anyone know that one? It's The Big Lebowski, which is an example of a postmodern detective, which we'll be looking at towards the end of the class. This week, we want to talk about police detectives in particular. So, what is a police detective? This is an important distinction because some folks are going to get confused between police detectives, police officers, and then also private detectives. So we want to make sure that we define these things accurately. So I took this one from a government website. Detectives are plainclothes investigators who gather facts and collect evidence for criminal cases. So that's the dry definition. We know they don't wear uniforms, if that's the case. But also, it's important to know where they fit in. And so they're at the top of the departmental food chain. Okay, the top of the hierarchy. You have to work a long time to actually become a plainclothes detective, and they get to follow through on cases and investigations. So the folks in uniform are police officers. So if there's a crime scene, for example, the police officers show up first. They cordon it off, and then you have the plainclothes detectives rolling in a little bit later in their brown ugly suits, and they instantly come in and start bossing people around. That's what detectives do. Okay. So, what obstacles do police detectives encounter? Because they're going to encounter a fair number in movies, because if they didn't run into those, then the movies would be boring as hell. One is procedural hurdles and impediments, paperwork and other things like that. You're trying to do your job, you're trying to solve the case, you're trying to find who committed the murder, things like that. But there are all these other things you need to do it the right way, to do it by the book. And in movies, characters are very often running into these problems. Um, Lawyers, politicians, unsupportive administrators. So obviously the ingrained enemy of the police detective is going to be the lawyer who's defending the person that they're trying to convict. Also, politicians. Politicians always seem to just get in the way. And also, unsupportive administrators. They should have your detectives back, but do they? They usually don't. And so that ends up causing problems as well. Also, the dichotomy between law and justice. So the law applies to everyone, even criminals. So criminals have rights, but at the same time, in trying to solve the case, trying to get justice for either the slain or someone who's been victimized in some way, shape, or form, the detective's going to kind of run up against that dichotomy, that split between law and what is justice. And then also potential corruption at the top and bottom. And we'll take a closer look at this whenever we start talking about dirty cops, which is a few weeks away. I'd say dirty detectives, but that just has like a totally different connotation there. But the corruption at the top, do people follow along with it? Or at the bottom, do people protect each other? How does that happen? That's another common narrative that we see in detective stories. So the film for this week is Dirty Harry from 1971. So our synopsis for this film, and it's a San Francisco story. I'm going to have at least one more San Francisco-based movie in this class. Most of the time, we switch between San Francisco or Los Angeles for some reason or another. So San Francisco is held hostage to a depraved serial killer, and only one policeman can stop him. But in order to do it, he'll have to step on some toes, break some rules, and shoot some people. That's what Dirty Harry does, especially the shooting people part. So the title is a bit of a misnomer because even though he's called Dirty Harry, we're not talking about dirty or corrupt cops yet. Instead, it's about a dedicated police officer whose idea of justice just differs pretty sharply from that of the American legal system. So we have that dichotomy, as I said before, between law and justice. Dirty Harry is trying to serve justice. So that's what makes him what we call a rogue cop, which is different from a dirty cop. And we'll talk about why that is when we talk about dirty cops. Rogue cops, their heart is in the right place. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to still solve cases, but the way they're doing it, their methods are kind of on the unsound edge. So this is typical of the American attitude towards law enforcement in the 1970s. It was considered to be ineffective at best, corrupt at worst. We have a whole lot of shows that were and movies that were critical of law enforcement in the 1970s. They're pretty much indictments on every institution, but police and detectives in particular. This film differs a little bit, I'll just mention, because it's more of a right-wing critique of liberalism than the standard films of this era, which were kind of left liberal critiques of right-wing tactics. So just watch and you'll see what we're talking about. So our questions for this week. Number one, what opposing ideologies do Harry and the Scorpio Killer represent? Now pay close attention to this because it's kind of ironic. So this is kind of a critique of the specific culture of the time. So pay attention to Harry and also the Scorpio Killer. Watch for the Scorpio Killer's belt buckle. That will help you kind of figure out where this goes. Number two, what obstacles does Detective Callahan encounter while trying to solve his case? And how does the film question the effectiveness of the law? So here we go, that law versus justice thing. What are his obstacles, and then how does it question the effectiveness of the law? Number three, is Harry a good or a bad cop, and why or why not? This is up to you, entirely based on opinion. Some of you will think, yeah, he's great. Some of you think, dude, he sucks. But I want you to back it up. Why do you think he's a good or a bad cop? Number four, why would Harry's approach be appropriate in the 70s? And why is it inappropriate now? So pay attention to the things he does, the things he says, the way he behaves. Why would that really be inappropriate now in the society we live in today? And then number five, what does the ending signify? Pay attention to what Harry does at the end of the film, and then what does he seem to be saying with that? All right, folks, enjoy the film and read over these things. Make sure you can answer the discussion questions, okay? I'm still not sure the mechanism, how we're going to be going over these. I may come up with either a discussions section just for this, or we'll do perhaps a live discussion that will happen around the time when the class originally met. I'll figure out which one of these is more feasible going into it, but make sure you can answer these questions. If you have any questions for me, ask, but I'll try to figure out a way we can actually discuss them. Let me show you really quickly where this stuff is going to live. You probably already have a good idea, but just let me take you there anyway. So here's your class, and notice I've changed this to where we have pages for each topic. So last week was group project info, forms and samples. This week, police detectives. And here right now you have your notes, and you also have accessible notes. Located in here is also going to be this lecture that I'm recording right now, and then there will also be a link to Dirty Harry as well. And then if I add another discussion, I'll probably have one just on police stories, things if you perhaps had a run-in with the cops or something, you folks can tell your stories. I'll put that in there, and then we may also have another discussion just over the discussion questions for the class. But that will be located here as well, and this will be the process that we go through. This is the way I'll be organizing things as we go forward in the class. Okay. Well, have a good week, and enjoy the content. I will be putting more stuff as we go, and then I will also touch base with you folks about your group projects as well. Thank you.